the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
A year ago, if you had 2 years of this kind of offense that we've seen this year, maybe they're looking at a different kind of situation altogether, but it was too little too late, and there's just too much money on the line. There's too much talent on the line. Texas and Oklahoma are coming in the conference next year. You kind of just need to get out ahead of this, Matt Green. So I think it was the right move for A&M, and if they can afford to eat that kind of money, then look, I'm a big believer. It's like, I don't like holes of like, oh, well, he won 4 down the stretch, so maybe he's turned the corner. No, it's like you should always operate under the belief of like, hey, either one of two things. You believe this is the coach who is going to get you there, or you don't. There's not this arbitrary, if he wins 8 games, then maybe, no, you either believe in him or you don't. So it seems clear that they did not believe he was going to be able to get them to that final level of winning national titles, making the playoffs, things like that. And if that's the case, look, saving 60 or going from 65 million to 75 million a year, no, that's just a waste of time. It's going to be a big number no matter what. So if you don't believe Jimbo's the guy to guide you there in 2024 and beyond, then you got to make this kind of move. It's a staggering number. The figure is insane to look at, but I mean, I get it, and I think the A&M job is going to be extremely, extremely interesting to see which names pop up and who ultimately gets this job. What say you, Matt Green?
Yeah, I think the buyout number is still why it's surprising. Like they were clearly underachieving, but man, paying someone $76 million not to coach, that's wild to me. But like you said, he was 45 and 25 in 70 games. Sumlin was 48 and 22 after his first 70. Ended up 51 and 26 overall. And it's like Sumlin was the 8-5 king. Like it was good, but nothing special outside of the 1 year where you had a generational quarterback. And that's basically what Jimbo had, other than the generational quarterback. He had 1 year what is this, year 8? 1 year where they lost less than 4 games. So it's like, it's not going to get it done. I felt like, there might be a little bit of some context this season with another injury to the starting quarterback. Like, I mean, this team without their starting quarterback lost to Alabama by a touchdown, to Tennessee by a touchdown, to Ole Miss by 3 points on the road. Like, those are 3 top 15 teams, top 20 teams in college football. So it's not, and the Miami loss, obviously early on, they had 4 losses, but I don't know. It didn't seem like it was bad enough to fire him right now. But I mean, I obviously see the win-loss record, and compared to what he did against Kevin Sumlin, and if what Sumlin did wasn't good enough, then what Jimbo's doing with that much more money and that much more NIL resources and all that, I get it. I guess I get it. The timing surprises me a little bit, but I do get it.
But you also want to get out ahead of this. You want to get this search started. You're not playing for anything down the stretch. I mean, I think the timing makes sense, honestly, because you want to beat out potentially an Arkansas for a guy you want. You want to get out of some of these other jobs that might open up. And it's also, I thought that was funny, like a lot of coaches are just smiling, big-time coaches around the league, where guess what? Now a lot of dudes are about to get raises because their agent's going to float that they are maybe interested in looking at the A&M job and the money that might be offered to them there. So we're going to see some raises from some coaches that probably don't deserve it because they're going to float the A&M job as a possibility and kind of like see if they can leverage that a little bit. So that's always a fun part of these cycles. But I wonder to you, Matt Green, is it fair to compare it? Because I'm seeing a lot of comparisons to LSU when it opened up after Orgeron, right? That it's a sleeping giant, that it's just a quick fix, that there's a lot of talent there. I'm like, I don't think this is as good of a job as LSU. And I don't know if it's like a slam dunk where, I mean, LSU got pretty dicey at the end. Remember, like Brian Kelly kind of came out of nowhere late in the process, but it looked like, remember early on, it was Lane, it was Jimbo. Funny enough, where it was like, is LSU going to pull Jimbo from A&M? And it was going to be an uninspiring final.
Lincoln Riley, I think, was kind of
maybe a little. Yeah,
LSU.
I think that's right. But ultimately, Brian Kelly comes out of nowhere, and it's turned out to be a pretty good hire. And I think Brian Kelly will eventually get there with this group and with the amount of talent. I think he's a top 10 coach in this league. So I think they'll be fine. It was a good hire. I don't know if the A&M job's going to go like that. I have no idea, because you see all the names where it could go all over the place. Like you see Traylor from UTSA, you see Lane Kiffin, you see Mike Elko. I've heard Dan Quinn's thrown around at DC with the Cowboys. Remember, he has some college experience at Florida and company. And I don't know, you're just seeing names from all over the place. Kalen DeBoer up in Northwest, like Glenn Schumann popped up from Georgia. I've never seen a more diverse opening, just who could be the next coach of A&M. Mike Norvell, just go back-to-back Florida State coaches if you're A&M. I don't know. Like, there are a whole heck of a lot of names, but where would you guess, or not even where would you guess, because it's hard to just put yourself in Ross Bjork's shoes here with this hire. But if you were Ross right now and you're conducting this search, where would you target and who would make the most sense to you when you think about the big time names or even some off the radar names?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like with Texas A&M, like they to start with the first part you're saying, like, no, A&M's nowhere close to as good of a job as LSU. Like LSU's the last 3 guys they've hired have won national championships. So like A&M hasn't won a national championship in 100 years. So it's definitely not that level. It's a good job with a lot of money and a lot of like access to the recruiting footprint and everything, you know? So obviously A&M has a lot of things going for it, but it doesn't have anything going for it that like every single other powerhouse program in the Southeast doesn't also have going for them with also more recent history of national championships. So it's up there. It's a good job. It's not necessarily like we talk about all the money A&M's got, and it's like, yeah, that's fine. But a lot of schools have a lot of money. You still got to do the right thing with it. So when I look at A&M, obviously Mike Elko's name is one that gets thrown out a lot with his experience with Jimbo. You almost worry, does his experience with Jimbo hurt him? That it's like, we're trying to go a complete new direction. We don't want to bring any of the Jimbo era back. Glenn Schumann is a guy, like, this guy was under Kirby Smart, and he saw like Kirby Smart didn't leave until he got a powerhouse job offer. So Glenn Schumann, when he leaves Georgia, he's going to get some sort of powerhouse offer, in my opinion. It's just depends on which one comes along. But A&M doesn't feel like the type of job that A&M feels like they're going to make a splash, like because we always talk about their money and everything. Like they poached Jimbo Fisher from Florida State, a national championship winning coach. So a guy like Mike Norvell, I think it would be a bad move. A Dan Lanning, that doesn't make sense to me. You know, maybe Kalen DeBoer. You know, maybe A&M's a better job than Washington. I'm not really sure it is. I definitely think Oregon's a better job. So Lane Kiffin is one that like A&M's got a higher ceiling than Ole Miss, in my opinion. So it's like that's one I could understand happening. But yeah, I mean, it's that I feel confident they're gonna get a guy with experience that's like got some name recognition that you could get excited about.
I mean, it's funny, but I mean, Lane does make the most sense. And you listen to his comments after the Ole Miss game where it's like, we just have to recruit better. He was pretty demoralized after the Ole Miss game last night. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I wonder if that leads to it. I mean, he was flirting with the Auburn job this past cycle. His name popped up, obviously, with LSU. I think people are just like assuming that he's going to jump back to this sounds, I don't mean to say it in like a disrespectful way, but like just the big boy ball, the 5 stars. And like, there's a ceiling for Mississippi. There's a ceiling for Mississippi State. There's a ceiling for Mizzou, who we'll talk about in a little bit. There's a ceiling for Kentucky and what you can ultimately be.
But A&M's got a different ceiling than some of those. I think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a different ceiling. So if he jumps, this is a jump up where Lane wants to win championships again. Like Lane wants to get
Mark
back.
Stoops or something that could, you know.
That's a tough sell, though. That's a tough sell.
There's a tendency, though. It seems like when you get the offensive-minded coach and it doesn't work out and you fire him, you go to the defensive-minded coach. Now, it feels like there's a tendency for programs at college and pro to do things like that. So,
but they did go back-to-back offensive coaches.
That's fair, and neither one of them worked out that well. So I don't know. Like, do they go try to get James Franklin or something? Because Franklin feels like his seat's getting hot up in Penn State. Like, who knows? But I
love the Dan Quinn idea because I don't hate going NFL here a little bit because I think this is sneaky. Like when you look at the budget and you look at the 5 stars and you look at what it's going to cost to keep a lot of these guys, because that's the other part of it. It's like you can't even look at these jobs anymore when there is stacked 5-star classes like A&M has. Like it's a more appealing job pre-portal where, yeah, those guys are all locked in. Like a lot of those guys aren't jumping out. Like, hey, this is a plug and play. Like, look at all these guys I get to walk into that I don't even recruit. These are other people's players that I get to just take over. It's like, oh, 5-star here, 5-star there. This is amazing. I get a 5-star quarterback, 5-star wide receiver, 5-star running back. That's awesome. What a great situation. That's not how it's going to go. Like, you're going to have to immediately recruit and keep all these guys that Jimbo brought in. That is going to be extremely arduous. That like we're going to see how many he keeps. Some people are going to leave. Like you're going to lose some people from your class that you have right now here. So I think in terms of these jobs now, I think you have to be, it's so much more complicated than it used to be. And even walking into these, it's just kind of, man, I don't envy these new coaches coming into these situations because you immediately have to hit the ground running, not just recruiting for the next class, but recruiting these guys who are in the building that you have no relationships with, that you have to convince that it's in their best interest to stay and all that. Like, it's just a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see which way they go, because if you go NFL or somebody like that, maybe you can keep more of them who have more of an NFL understanding, because this is a very NIL money based operation, you know, where it's just like that's what we've heard for years now is like A&M's NIL budget, and what they're doing is just second to none. So when you look at it that way, I mean, you have Nick Saban taking shots a year ago and all that. Like, I wonder if that's where you go. You just like NFL eyes this thing even more, and you just hire an NFL guy, and you're like, hey, yeah, like we're running an NFL operation down here.
Hey, we haven't even talked about the biggest splash that could possibly be, and it's Coach Prime. Like, we know about his Texas roots and high school recruiting to Texas. Like, Deion Sanders, that would definitely it's only a matter of time till he's coming to one of those bigger jobs. Like, everyone saw the buzz he created at Colorado in 1 year. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out.
I'm a believer he's waiting out Alabama. That's my thing, is I think he's waiting out Alabama.
I don't know.
Could be wrong, but that's what I've said for years. But we shall see, Matt Green. Your early prediction. Give me a prediction. It's day one. You could look like clairvoyant Matt Green. Who do you guess right now on November 12th? Who gets the A&M job?
Lane Kiffin.
Okay. I'm going to go Mike Elko. I think they do go safe, and they do go someone in the family, and DC's recruited well in the area. And like you said, they go opposite in a lot of these.
Yeah,
I don't think they
that's
go
what I was
straight.
thinking. Lane Kiffin feels like just a younger version of Jimbo, like a guy shit talker, like poking the bear of Nick Saban and all that.
And maybe he keeps by Petrino, because that's what I would also do. I would keep Petrino. The offense has been a lot better, and Petrino's one of the best play callers. Like, I would, if you hire Elko, you can maybe keep Petrino and not lose a lot there, because that might be a bigger appeal to hiring a defensive-minded guy. Is just you want to hire defense and then keep Petrino installed as the OC.
And I mean, Elko's a big reason why, you know, a lot of those big-time recruits wanted to come to A&M on the defensive side of the ball. Like, he's a big part of what the guys that are currently there.
Absolutely. All right, Matt Green. Week 11 in the books here. How did the pick'em go for both of us?
It was another excellent week for us on the pick'em. I just can't make up any ground on Chase Thomas over there. So both of us went 9-2 overall on the weekend. I went 8-3 against the spread, which I was very proud of. But Chase Thomas over here went 9-2 against the spread. So killing it this week, up to 59.5% on the season against the spread to my 54.5. So, you know, what can you do? Zeus, Penn State let him down. Only his 4th loss of the season. So he's 11-4, sitting at 73.3% on the season. So still killing it. But yeah, Nittany Lions let him down this weekend.
Interesting. All right. Matt Green, let's go to Georgia first, and we'll talk Tennessee. We'll talk about your dogs first. This was where Chase was right. I said Carson Beck would have a big day. I had questions about Ole Miss's defense, last home game of the year. Dogs are getting up for this, like this night game, and we know Kirby's history with night game. Everything about this screamed, go to a nice dinner with your wife. Go to the movies for the second half. Go do anything other than watch the last 30 minutes of this football game. And I was right, because not only did Georgia blow out Ole Miss, it wasn't even close. Like, this was significantly worse than what we saw the week prior against Missouri, Matt Green. And this was a shellacking all across the board. But as the Georgia expert on this very show, sir, how did Georgia blow out Ole Miss?
I think it's just because they could not stop this offense. Georgia ran for 300 yards, passed for 300 yards. Carson Beck is absolutely dealing. Like, Carson Beck, I'll say it right now.